Hello everybody and welcome back to another weekly recap. Now today we're getting probably one of the biggest updates of the year, not so much content wise but in scope, and that is the death rework. Now death in old school RuneScape has always been kind of complicated, and that is not going to be changing with the new death rework. There are quite a few different variations to death and variables that will cause things to interact differently. So today I'm going to be going over their blog post, YouTube videos, and any other information that I can scrape together to give you the best, most accurate, and hopefully easy to understand version of the new death rework, because it can be quite complicated. There are different rules based on the game mode you play, the location you die in, what monster you die to, and what items you are wearing. As always, I'll be going over anything else related to the old school RuneScape community this week. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get started. Now today on June 25th, we finally received the pretty significant changes to the way death works in old school RuneScape. Now before we get into this here, kind of a PSA, this update is pretty nuanced and there's quite a few ways that this could go wrong. Either a significant bug crops up during the update and we have a server rollback, or other potential issues that don't get rolled back could cause you to lose items, so I'd be a bit wary today. Either making tons of progress or doing extremely risky PVM, just because the update is quite fresh and I think a lot of people expect that there could be some issues that crop up. I'm pretty sure so far there's only one significant case of a bug cropping up, and that one has already been patched out. So far so good, but still be a bit wary. Okay, so at the beginning of the blog post, to kind of go over how the old death mechanics, or the one we had until today, were somewhat temporary measures that were never meant to be in the game for the long term. Now, it was hard to get people to agree on a specific set of death mechanics. Some people wanted more punishing death mechanics and some people want less. In the end, they somewhat took a middle ground. Now, I'm going to be going over all the mechanics here, but one thing I want you to keep in mind is the item kept on death interface has been updated and should be functioning perfectly, so you always want to refer to that screen. That screen will be accurate even if you don't remember all of the individual mechanics and how they work. Now the new death mechanic is split up into two different systems. We have the Gravestones and Death's Office. Now when you die in old school RuneScape, you're going to get a gravestone that will last on the ground for 15 minutes. That should give you enough time to pretty much get back to any area in the game. However, if you are too slow, it's then going to go to Death's Office, which is going to be a more punishing version and will be more costly. However, assuming that you die a PVM death, there is no way that you're going to lose all of your items now, which is an improvement over the old system. Previously, if you died somewhere far away and your internet connection went down, or you couldn't get back to a computer in time, your items would eventually disappear after 60 minutes. However, with the new mechanics, that is not the case. For one, your items are going to stay within the Death's Office indefinitely, which means that even if you leave for a month and come back, your items are still going to be there. And on top of that, if you are logged off or you are experiencing connection difficulties, the timer is not going to be counting down. Now these two systems are going to interact a bit differently based on the account type you're playing. To begin with here, Ultimate Ironman have been pretty much completely unchanged. There's only a few minor tweaks and none of those are very major. Ultimate Ironman got omitted from this update just because of how ingrained death is in their playstyle, and it would pretty much completely ruin the meta for the game mode, so that is completely unchanged. And the only difference between a regular account and an Ironman account, beyond their normal restrictions, is that Ironmen will not have to pay as much in coins when they die. This is because Ironmen don't have as much liquidity as a regular account, meaning that they don't have as much cash on hand, and it's a lot harder to get cash and items back. Now once you die in old school RuneScape, a gravestone will appear on the ground as well as on your world map. This gravestone can be looted from 7 tiles away, as well as be looted on any world, so it's not dependent on the world you died on in case you forget. Now assuming you make it back there in 15 minutes, you will have to pay a fee. Now a lot of the common cheaper items will be free to reclaim, so if you are a total noob in full Runite, for example, you won't have to pay anything. However, once you get up to items worth over 100,000 GP, you're going to start getting a fee. Now the fee starts at 1,000 GP for an item worth over 100k and will rise up to a potential fee of 100,000 GP per item worth over 10 million. Now with that said though, the maximum potential fee from the gravestone is actually 500k. I went ahead and tested it in games, so regardless if you die with a Twisted Bow, an Elysian, a Druidic Top, whatever, the top out fee is going to be 500k from the gravestone, assuming you get back there in 15 minutes. Now, in general, your gravestone is going to appear right where you died, but in other circumstances it won't, mainly if you die in an instance. Now, when you die in instanced areas, your gravestone will aim to appear outside of the instance where you can loot it without having to worry about losing all of your items. Also, notably, your gravestone will appear outside of the God Wars dungeon boss rooms, which means you no longer need to get the kill count again to get your items back. Now if you die again on the way back to your gravestone, your items will then be put back in the gravestone and the timer will be reset. Now I'm not sure if this is a way where you could potentially extend your timer with no risk. I'm not sure if that's going to double your reclaim fee or not, they don't specify. Now if you don't make it back to your gravestone in 15 minutes, your grave is going to collapse and anything left in it is going to be sent to the Death's office. Now once again, any items valued under 100,000 GP are returned for free, so if you're using budget gear, you're not going to really have to pay anything. However, for everything else, you're going to be paying 5% of its current Grand Exchange value, which is pretty significant. Now Death's office is going to be located at all of the major respawn points. There's one in the Lumber's graveyard, the Coffin Room in Edgeville, plus a new one that has been made in the White Knight's castle. Now when your items go to the Death's office, the fee can stack up very quickly because as far as I'm aware, there's no maximum amount. Which means if you die and you don't protect a Twisted Bow and you don't make it back to the gravestone in time, 5% of the GE value of the Twisted Bow is going to be how much it costs to reclaim it, which, that's going to add up very quickly. That could be 50 mil for that. Now, if you don't have that level of cash, you're actually able to offer items into Death's coffer, who's going to pay you 105% of the GE value. This is kind of used as an item sink, but the cash that you convert cannot be withdrawn. It can only be used to pay for your reclaim fee. Now, Death's coffer will only accept items worth over 10,000 GP each, so you can't sacrifice a bunch of cheap items. And once again, for Ironman accounts, the total fee is going to be cut in half, because once again, they don't have as much liquidity. Now, those are the basic interactions that are going to happen for the majority of items and for the majority of circumstances. Now, I'm briefly going to go over some of these special interactions, but I would recommend definitely reading them yourself because there's quite a few different ones. Now, items that have special interactions are generally those that are untradeable. For example, charged items like a toxic blowpipe, things like fire capes, ornament kit items, and other untradables. Now for PVM, these interactions have changed quite a bit, and you're no longer going to save most of these items on death. They are instead going to be sent to your gravestone and eventually to Death's office. For example, previously a toxic blowpipe would be kept on a non-PvP death, but now on death, and assuming that you're not going to protect it, it's going to convert into an uncharged, tradable version and then go to your gravestone. You'll also get any of the leftover charges back with it. For the blowpipe, that would be an amount of Zulrah scales equivalent to the charges remaining. Now one other kind of interesting change here that is pretty major is tradable ornament kits. A lot of the ornament kits are tradable, such as the Dragon Volhelm ornament kit or the Dark Infinity color kit. These now come with an extra perk outside of PvP, in that they cause your items to be protected. So for example, a Banda's Godsword will usually stay in your inventory instead of going to your gravestone. That's the Fashionscape bonus. Now this is the way it worked previously, but it's somewhat of a buff now compared to the other items because, for example, most untradables now are going to be sent to your gravestone and will count as an item that you lose, but the ornament kits will actually protect them on death. And the last thing to mention here is pouches. For example, the Rune Pouch, Essence Pouch, the Herb Sack, and the Bolt Pouch would normally lose all of their items on death. However, after this change, everything in the pouch will now be sent to the gravestone. Okay, I know it's complicated, guys, but we just have one final thing at least mentioned in the blog post, and that is the special PVM death locations. Now for bosses that have had custom death interactions for a long time now, for example, Zulrah, Vorkath, the Volcanic Mine, and Hespori are all going to remain the same. You will pay the flat reclaim fee like you have done previously for all of these locations, which in the end is actually going to be quite a bit cheaper for the most part than dying in mid to high level gear. The only thing that is changing here is Zulrah is now going to be getting a reclaim fee as well as a death interface. Dying at Zulrah is now going to cost you 100,000 GP to reclaim your items, making it in line with Vorkath. Okay, so that is the death mechanics kind of summarized again. There's a lot to it, and there's still a lot that was not mentioned. There are a ton of different untradable items, and it seems like they're being handled on a case-by-case basis, so there's no one blanket statement that can tell you exactly which items are protected and when. Unfortunately, we're just going to have to learn them slowly. It was like trying to learn verbs in French. There are a couple rules, but in general, you just have to remember a lot of stuff. But once again, I would highly recommend just referencing the items kept on death interface if you were confused ever, and that should be 100% accurate. And that is pretty much it for the death update today. Now on top of that, we also did get a few changes to the Hallowed Sepulchre. Okay, so the experience rates for the Hallowed Sepulchre have been adjusted once again. Floor 1 and 2 has remained unchanged. Floor 3 has had its experience reduced from 1500 to 1425, so a nerf of 75 experience. Floor 4 has had its experience reduced from 2700 to 2625, and Floor 5 has had its experience reduced from 6000 to 5850. Now to compensate for that, the amount of experience you receive when you are looting a chest has been increased by 50 experience on floor 3 and 4 and 100 experience on floor 5. So overall, another very minor nerf to the Hallowed Sepulchre. Anyway guys, I think that's where I'm going to end it for today. There was a lot to talk about in the death mechanics, so hopefully that clarified things a bit, and I'm very eager to see how they pan out. Thanks for watching guys, I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, I always appreciate it if you leave the video a like, and I'll see you next time.